Hey PC gamers, and welcome back to the PC Gamer Chat Log. I am Lauren Morton.
And hey everyone, I'm Mollie Taylor.
And this week Mollie and I are bringing on Jody Macgregor, our weekend editor, to talk about developers that you should be watching next year in 2024. We're getting close to the end of this year. We're looking ahead to next year. Not just games that we're excited about, although obviously those things are like very closely tied together. We're going to be talking a lot about like specific games that we know developers are working on. But there's also some developers that like we don't exactly know what they're doing at this moment. Like they're off a release and it's about time for them to announce something new, potentially. Or they have announced something new, but they've not really told us anything about it. There's just like a webpage, some concept art, whatever. And we'd really like to know more about that thing. So these are the developers that you should be paying attention to for some potentially exciting announcements, things that we don't even know are coming at this point. We're going to round up a few different ones and also point you to some places on the website where you can get more coverage on similar things. But before we get to that, Mollie, what did you do last week?
Yeah, so I've been checking out Fortnite's new rhythm game.
Oh, of course you are.
Yeah, so I have played Fortnite like once in my life when I was at university on my PlayStation 4. I played that for like maybe like 40 minutes. Apart from that, I have never played Fortnite before. So essentially the first time I'm downloading Fortnite is to play the Fortnite Festival mode, which is like their new like rhythm game that has been done by Harmonix, who was the original Guitar Hero developer, and then they went on to make Rock Band. And they also made Fuser, if I remember correctly as well. That like kind of DJ game where you can kind of mash up different elements of pop tracks. It's okay, which is something I was really surprised about. I know, it's okay. It's very basic, you know, it's quite bare bones. From like a rhythm gamer's perspective, it's quite bare bones. There's no combo counter. There's not really like any judgment. It's either you get a perfect or you don't, kind of thing. You know, there's like a little bit of there's like some places where it's lacking, but I find it very enjoyable. I think I saw that they like just ported over a lot of their charts from like Rock Band to Fortnite and then tweaked them a little bit to make them compatible with control like normal pads and keyboards, which is very cool. But yeah, it's okay. It is serviceable in a way where like I'm willing to play more. It's pretty good.
It was kind of an exciting last like week and a half or so for Fortnite because we also got I know one of our other editors, Tyler Wilde, extreme Rocket League player and enjoys rocket racing, and Psyonix, the developer of Rocket League, right, did a like rocket racing mode now in Fortnite,
which apparently is very good.
Yeah, and there's the survival something too, and I don't remember who developed
Lego Fortnite.
Lego Fortnite. And it's like I think it's survival crafting-y stuff, right? Like people say Fortnite and my eyes glaze over, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw everybody else talking about in chat was like survival stuff with Lego Fortnite. I'm like, do I need to re-download Fortnite? I don't play Fortnite. I'm so sorry, but if they're gonna go full like Roblox, like grown-up Roblox, I guess, maybe I need to re-download Fortnite. Oh no.
Yeah, like I have not touched the Battle Royale mode. I've just been playing the Fortnite Festival, and I will be playing like the rocket racing mode as well because my friends are really into it at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice that like a lot of my friends have been playing like the Battle Royale Fortnite lately, and I don't really join in on that. So it's kind of been nice to have an excuse to play Fortnite, even if like hey, you want to play the rhythm game for a little bit. But yeah, from like a rhythm gamer's perspective, it's very simple. It's quite stripped back. There's not really like many challenging charts, I will say, but it's still very fun, even with its kind of quirks and its flaws. I've had a really good time with it.
Nice.
What about you?
I played almost nothing last week, I feel like. I don't know what I was doing last week. I think because it was the Game Awards week, and so I was like working kind of late a few different nights of last week. I think that's why I didn't play any games. I think I was working a lot, if we're being 100% honest. I might have finished Chants of Sonar last week. I've talked about the like language puzzle game a few times on here. Unless I said the week before that I had finished it, in which case I'm lying, and that's when I finished it, and I have just like lost track of days and times. But I think otherwise I almost played nothing, if we're being completely honest. So I'm just gonna leave it at Fortnite. Yeah, and my potential interest in maybe exploring Lego Fortnite as something I should do. So yeah. Well, since I played nothing, let's go grab Jody to talk about developers that we're going to keep an eye on. Hey, Jody, thank you for joining us back here on the Chatlog podcast. This week, Mollie and I are having you on to talk about developers we want to watch next year, right? Like a whole range of different things, people who we sort of know what they're working on or don't know what they're working on at all. And we called you in because you of the Venn diagram of like genres and things, we wanted to make sure to get some other non-Lauren and Mollie perspectives. And you definitely fit the bill. You follow some other stuff that we don't usually.
I do have a non-Lauren and non-Mollie perspective, it's true.
That's wild.
You're still a big RPGs guy, so I feel like we have the big center circle, but I know that there are some other things that we wouldn't be paying attention to that you definitely will have been that we're talking about today.
There are a lot of cozy games that I don't know anything about, so I'm interested to hear about what's happening there.
Do we even have? Okay, we do have a couple things that I think qualify as cozy games. Never mind, I'll shut up. This list definitely has some of that on here.
It's not a podcast episode if we're not talking about cozy games.
Yep, pretty much. So one of the places I wanted to start is like kind of a big obvious elephant in the room is Larian. Obviously, we like Baldur's Gate 3 just blew everything out of the water this year, swept a couple awards shows, like has been amazing in the community. Just a couple. Everybody has loved it even more than we kind of were expecting to. Mollie, I really like how you put it on the podcast a different week, that like we expected it to be good. We didn't expect it to be big, which I think is a really great way of putting like how I think most of us on team probably were thinking about Baldur's Gate 3 prior to it launching. And of course, we do not know what Larian's going to be doing next. They have not said. They just got through Baldur's Gate 3, so that's not surprising. And I was looking up the timeline, and they fully launched Divinity Original Sin 2 in 2017, and then the announcement of Baldur's Gate 3 came in the summer of 2019, 2 years apart. So I think it's unlikely that we hear what they're doing next year, unless it does turn out to be a Baldur's Gate 3 expansion, which they've said they're not working on. It sounds like they're not like ruling out that possibility, right? So like that could be a thing that happens, is a Baldur's Gate 3 story expansion of some kind. I imagine people would eat that up. Jody, did you play a bunch of Baldur's Gate 3 just like everybody else this year? You did.
Yeah, I'm on my second playthrough at the moment. My Dark Urge run is up to Act 2, so yes, very much. And like everyone, I think, who finished it, I did want more. It's nice that they added the epilogue and all of that stuff, but even though they're not like the kind of studio who does go back and double dip for like a big expansion normally, like, you know, they'll do their director's cut or whatever, or the definitive edition. I think if they did it with Baldur's Gate 3, yeah, for sure, people would, as you said, lap it up. So they got to be tempted.
Yeah. And if it's not Baldur's Gate 3, I really want to pay attention to what they've got going on next, because that leaves a lot of questions. Like, I mean, do they go back to Divinity Original Sin in some fashion? I mean, that's their own personal series that they really succeeded with in the last decade. Do they pick up some more licensed work and dip into some other universe? I don't know. I would be happy to see them do just about anything at all, but that's going to be one to watch for next year for sure, to see what they sort of start looking at. And the other really big unknown is Yellow Brick Games is one that I've wanted to have an eye on. And this is the studio that former BioWare lead Mike Laidlaw co-founded with some other people. Yeah. And I think we know they're working on a fantasy action RPG, right? We know that is the genre, but I think we don't know anything besides that at this point, right?
Yeah, I think there's some artwork on their website, and that's it. And it's very sort of generic fantasy artwork. There's mist and forests and some kind of large monsters, and I think monoliths that glow, that is every fantasy RPG of the last decade.
That's sure fantasy.
That is a fantasy RPG. How are you feeling about it, Lauren? Because you're kind of like, when I think BioWare, I think Lauren. So, so how are you as like the Dragon Age girly? How are you kind of?
I mean, as a Dragon Age girly, I think that like my attention is on Larian for like that desire, but thinking about the Dragon Age team, and of course, like we talked about layoffs earlier in this month on the podcast as well, which have hit BioWare along with tons of other studios. But even before that, I mean, there was a lot of attrition on that team for the last however long, like they've been working on Dreadwolf pretty much. Basically since Anthem, there's been a lot of movement from BioWare. Different former members have founded and joined different studios. David Gator went and made Chorus, right? The musical RPG. And I'm trying
ended up being
Stray Gods is what it ended up being called in the end. Sorry, it changed names.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think of some other folks and what they have gone off to do. But yeah, a lot of like former BioWare talent has kind of like scattered and tried to put down roots in new places. So I keep wanting to see what they're all doing, even if the BioWare that made the games that I love and then the BioWare that made the games that other people love are all like a decade past and then another decade past that, unfortunately, at this point. So I'll take more action RPGs for sure. I like a good action RPG. Take a crack at it. I want to see it, especially if it's fantasy. You and me, Molly, fantasy girls.
I love a fantasy RPG. I haven't really seen much. Like you said, there's not really much to go on anyway. And my experience with like BioWare-esque stuff is basically just Mass Effect. So when I hear like former BioWare man makes new studio, I don't go, ooh, goody. I'm just like, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Like, I like a good fantasy RPG. It's right up my alley. So let's see. Even if it is forests, misty forests, and all the fun stuff that we see in every other fantasy RPG already, I will eat it up, and I know I will. So
I didn't write it down, but we just got a lot of sci-fi shooters, as was noted, got trailers at the Game Awards last week. One of them had like some serious Mass Effect vibes, and I think has some former Mass Effect team members that are working on it, right? I didn't make that part up, but I don't remember the name. Jody, do you? You look like you remember.
It's on the tip of my brain. It's not Nexus. The problem is that we saw like 7 sci-fi shooters all get announced at the Game Awards, and they have all blurred together into the one kind of generic third-person action sci-fi RPG sort of mess.
I will admit right now that I was very drunk during the Game Awards. So
because you weren't working during it.
Because I was not working during it. I was watching it with some friends. So I was very drunk. I do not...
Exodus is what it was called.
Exodus.
Thank you to past me for writing around that post.
Was that in the latter half of the show?
Girl, I don't know.
I
don't remember. I wasn't drinking, but my brain sure was. I've lost what happened. No, it was in like the early bit, I think. Ish.
Oh my God.
That's the one that Matthew McConaughey announced, maybe?
Oh,
yeah.
It was the one that Matthew McConaughey. Okay, yeah. Okay.
I forgive you for just forgetting what came after that.
Yeah, that show is just one giant blur of just... I remember Timothy Chalamet was there. That was it.
So as for things that we do know a little bit more about. One of you has down that Weta Workshop game here, which I hadn't forgotten. Who wants to talk about that?
Yeah, I chucked that one on the list because I do like me some Hobbits. Like, we've had a couple of other, Lord of the Rings games recently, and they have not been stellar, right? Golem and the Mines of Moria game that was
Return to
a bit
Moria,
disappointing.
yeah.
That's it. But perhaps slightly cozy game about just hobbits fishing and farming and living in the Shire is like, if we did one of those group features where we're like, what would we like someone to do with the Lord of the Rings? Someone would put that in as a joke, and then everyone would say, actually, that's a really good idea. And they're actually making it. It's crazy. The hobbits are like one of the best things about the Lord of the Rings, I think. The Lord of the Rings Online, the MMO, if you played as a hobbit, you got to start in the Shire and just do... Everyone else is out, saving the world, and you are just chasing bears away from a tree because some kids are climbing up in it, and you have to solve a puzzle in a haunted library or something. But it's mostly just like your problems are, there's some bees and you really want that honey. It's a very small scale.
Bees! What a problem!
Right? And that is what I want from a Lord of the Rings game. I don't want a huge sweeping epic. I want to see it from the perspective of like the tiny little English people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we know that that's what they're making. There might be some concept art for that, for Tales of the Shire is its name. But other than that, I think we've got nothing to go on, right? Just hopes and dreams about what being a hobbit might be like at this point. Mollie, do you have any personal investment in Lord of the Rings? I don't remember.
I do really like Lord of the Rings, and I think, Jody, I think you're so right. Like just a cozy game where you can just be a hobbit, just mill around. I do really like it because I have not really engaged with the Lord of the Rings stuff this year. I did not play Gollum. I did not play Moria. Did not play either of those. Kind of glad that I didn't. Honestly, my only experience with Lord of the Rings outside of watching the movies and reading The Hobbit is there was like a game on the PlayStation 2 that folded in scenes from the movie with gameplay. That's my only Lord of the Rings video game experience, and I should really change that. So I hope that Tales of the Shire is the game that could do that, because I love the idea of just being like a little hobbit going about my day. It's perfect.
I better have a killer cooking system, right?
Oh,
that's got to be a foundational requirement. It's just like a really great cooking system. It better be tactile as heck. Oh, I want to mash some stuff up.
I want to forage. I want to cook with my spoils.
Mollie, you also have down here Sony and PC porting, which I think falls under the known but unknown type things. We know the stuff that Sony could port. Do we know what they will port?
Yeah, this is something that I'm really interested in seeing next year, because this year and last year we've had a lot of pretty good games getting ported over, and I think Robin had said on our previous episode games that he wasn't even expecting to make it over to PC, like Ratchet and Clank. That is just one that I also would not have expected to see on PC. I think Spider-Man 2 is probably a given. We will most definitely end up seeing that, whether that's next year or whether that's into early 2025. I don't know, but they've got a good pool of games to pull from at the minute. Does Ragnarok have a PC release date yet? Is that a thing that we know is coming, or is that just...
I think that is under the assumed but unknown column right now.
Yeah, I think we will more than likely get Ragnarok next year. I know everyone is still holding out for Bloodborne, which I think is just intense copium at this point. But I think, I feel like if they wanted to do it, they would have done it by now. But maybe this time next year I'll be eating my words. But not just games that have come out recently. I feel like they've still got like a good little collection of games just stacking up from like the PS4 era as well, like early to mid PS4 era that they've just not pulled from yet. So I'm excited because all of their PC ports have been pretty good as well. They've been like serviceable at worst and pretty fucking good like at best. So I'm excited.
Jody, are you a Sony guy at all? I don't remember.
I'm not a huge Sony guy. I've never played an Uncharted or a God of War, or I haven't played Spider-Man yet, even though I like Spider-Man and I should get around to it. I am hanging out for when Final Fantasy's PC port gets announced, though.
Yeah.
That's
another one of those, like, it has to happen. They just we don't know when still, I don't think.
We don't know when.
Not that I haven't totally whiffed on the existence of a PC port on this podcast in the last month. What did I say that Shadow of the Colossus had a PC port and it absolutely does not?
That's one that definitely should, though.
Right there we go. I guess I'll put that in the hat as mine. The last Shadow of the Colossus and then The Last Guardian is the other one that like also has just never come to PC. Also, I think Team Eco, right? Would love to see those on PC. Please make me stop making me pull out my PS4 to play these games. I'm tired of getting it out. It needs to just stay in storage. I don't want to do it anymore.
Get tucked away. Yeah, because like before I was a PC gamer, I was a PlayStation gamer. Like that was I've talked about it on this podcast before that because PS4, like PS3, PS4 traditionally had like the games that I wanted to play that for a long time just weren't on PC, like JRPGs. Like Kingdom Hearts wasn't on PC until like 2021 or something. Like so the PlayStation was always the console that I would play. And I feel like there was a point where you didn't really need an Xbox anymore because if it was coming to Xbox, it was coming to PC. And it would be nice to eventually kind of have that for PlayStation as well, where like I can keep my PlayStation. It's a nice, like, I don't have to sit at my desk to play games machine. But it would also be nice to be like, oh, cool, this PlayStation game's coming out and I can play it on PC. Whether this year we'll see Sony kind of closing the gap on those releases, I don't think so. I think that is still quite a few years away before they even consider doing something like that. But I think for now, like 2024, we'll be seeing maybe games that came out like a year and a half ago, making their way over.
Yeah. Of note, I guess, on that topic is freaking GTA 6, right? Which we've only just had recently announced, and it's not going to come day and date to PC. Shocking, mostly nobody. So.
It's a bummer.
That is a freaking bummer, but we're not going to waste the time on GTA right now. Everybody's going to be paying attention to GTA next year, whether or not we tell them to. That is does not need to be said. Something that I think people might have forgotten about, and I cannot forget about, is IO Interactive. The folks of Hitman are working on two different things allegedly right now. One is a James Bond game, which like obvious license to pick up to go with the games they already develop. Heck yes, make me a Hitman that's like just slightly even more gadgety, I guess, to be a 007 game. Absolutely for that. But then they have a project that I think they've internally called Project Dragon, and we don't know anything about that. It's named Project Dragon, so it's I think we do know it's a fantasy game. I think we do know that factually. It's not just named Project Dragon, but we do not know what that entails. Like, is it also an immersive stealth thing? Is it something just completely different? It could be anything, right? Have either of you been paying attention to that or thinking about it?
No.
Jody, are you a Hitman guy?
I'm not a Hitman guy, so I haven't been. But now that you say immersive sim fantasy game, suddenly I think maybe I should be paying attention because that sounds rad. I did love the old Thief games, which are very sort of like steampunk fantasy stealth with lots of gadgets, and they were super fun. And I would definitely play an IO Interact kind of version of that.
Yeah, me too.
I-
Me too.
As we know, I've really taken my time through Hitman 3. When I finally got into that series, I was like, okay, I'm just going to jump in on Hitman 3, and I'm going to take about 20 hours per level, like one weekend for one level, and I'm still not finished with it. That's okay with me if their games last me literally multiple years because I have to do all the achievements. But yeah, like, the immersive stealth stuff is so cool, Jody. I like just have that in my head as like a Jody type game. So you should make that a reality for sure, so that you can be excited about it with me. But also like I'm excited that they're doing something fantasy, even if I don't know what that entails, because yeah, the modern spy action stuff is very cool. But again, fantasy genre, that's my home genre. Whatever they do, I'm curious. I want to find out what it's gonna be.
Yeah, like you said, James Bond seems like such a perfect, obvious fit for them. But then also for them to do something super left field like fantasy would be really interesting as well.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested in the fantasy side because I have enjoyed Hitman. I have been a Hitman enjoyer. I'm just like really bad at those games, so I still haven't finished them. But I think I would persevere for the sake of a fantasy setting. I think that would be, as we've already established this episode, I'm a sucker for fantasy, so that's definitely something that I will want to keep my eye on next year. And honestly, the Bond stuff as well, right? I feel like especially a lot of people my age have a lot of nostalgia for like Bond video gaming because of GoldenEye.
The GoldenEye era.
Yeah, that's like a lot of people in their like late 20s, early 30s. Like that's like a pretty good point of reference for people, I think. So I think like that might attract some people to it as well, including me, to be honest. So
we've said we want this to be the new era of good licensed games, right? Like I think we're kind of in it already. Like everybody loves the Spider-Man games. There are other stuff. Give us a good James Bond game. And give us a good Lord of the Rings game, please. One that I just like had a premonition about apparently was House, the developers of the Untitled Goose Game. Amazing puzzle game. Loved that when it came out. That is a different kind of stealth sim for sure. More of a stealth puzzler, rather. But when I wrote this down, we knew that they were working on a third project and they had not announced it. And then the next day, after I wrote down some notes for this conversation, the Game Awards happened. And who showed up but House with their next game, which is called Big Walk, I think is what it was called. And it's like social puzzle exploration, right? Were either of you paying attention to that one in particular? Now that we know what it is.
I did watch the trailer a couple of times. It's definitely multiplayer. It seems like a sort of co-op hangout game also with some puzzles. And also it seems very Australian. Like the opening has like really like the bird calls are very Australian and all of the gum trees in the background, even though you look like some weird alien blob type people, but just all of the backgrounds are very authentically Australian, which is interesting. So I don't know if that factors into the story or what.
Are they an Australian studio? Their last game, they are? Okay. The last game felt very British Gardens, and I don't remember if it like literally was or if it just felt that way. But Untitled Goose Game definitely had like the feelings of like, British village type deal. But maybe is that also an Australian concept, Jody? The village green?
Not in the same way. I think it was just sort of very well observed outsiders there's enough British culture in Australia. We get so much British television that we just absorb all of that Inspector Morse shit. It's just part of our DNA now.
Well, I'm glad they're doing something on home turf then. That's really exciting. And I love the idea. I love just like silly co-op games so much. I love something that I can just like goof in with friends. And the thing that it made me think about watching that trailer for Big Walk was of all things, Sea of Thieves, because we talked about this on the podcast before. Mollie freaking loves Sea of Thieves and just like the goofiness, like the in-world type menus, the way that you look at your map and then you flip it around and just like show it to your friends, and just like for whatever reason that action is hilarious that you can shove a map in your friend's face. And just like the initial trailer for Big Walk was making me think about just like that level of silliness of just sort of like goofing around, like coming up with little physical gags and whatnot. We still don't know a lot about what's going to be in that game, but I'm anticipating something fun and silly for sure from that studio, like the game in which a goose picks up a knife and carries it around and honks at people. Like, give whatever you want to do with that, please. I'm going to enjoy it.
I think because there's a lot of crossover between like Australian and British humor as well, so I think that like that kind of humor is very present in Untitled Goose Game. So I really want to see that kind of implemented into a different game as well. It'll be really fun.
Yeah. Who wanted to talk about Supergiant? Who was that?
This is the game I'm looking forward to the most next year, because we know they're working on Hades 2, and we know it's supposed to go into early access in, I think, the second quarter of next year.
Okay.
And the first Hades was in early access for a lot, like 2 years, right? Because it was on Epic early access before it came to Steam early access, which I don't even know if there were any other games on Epic early access at the time. It might have been the first one. Anyway.
Was that like the flagship early access on Epic? Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a while before they actually finish Hades 2, I imagine. But the first game was the kind of game you could play in early access and still get a very sort of a complete experience out of, because of that sort of, it's a game you start over and over again. So it doesn't matter if you're playing it before 100% of the game is there. It takes, a lot of hours to get to the end of that game anyway. It doesn't matter if they haven't built it when you start. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Supergiant do with a sequel, since they've never made a sequel before.
Yeah. That is definitely like, and of course, to refresh people's memory, if you don't remember, Supergiant are the same ones that did Bastion and Transistor, thank you, and Pyre, and then it was Hades after that, right? All fantastic games. Like, truly, Supergiant does not miss. Like that, and that to me is like developers to watch. The one that just never misses. It's Supergiant for sure. And I think what I said about like when Hades like fully launched was that it was so exciting to see a studio that you thought was already at the top of their game just find some new peak to climb. You're like, oh my God, they still even better than before. And yeah, to be doing a direct sequel for the first time, that's new for them. We'll see what that brings. Hopefully something really exciting for people who loved like the character relationships and like all like things like that in it as well. Mollie, you have Paralives, right?
I do, yeah. So Alex Masse, I'm so sorry if I mispronounced that. It's French surnames do not compute too well in my brain. Alex Masse is working on Paralives, which is like the Sims rival potential. It looks very, very good. It has been in the works now for quite a while, I want to say. It's been like in existence for at least, I want to say, like 3 years at this point. It has been in existence for quite a while. I think he is like working away on that, like through Patreon, I believe. I I do not use like Patreon at all, but I believe that's what he's kind of feeding info and little bits and bobs through Patreon. So there is still not a release date. I feel like we're getting closer. I would hope we're getting closer. I really do want to see more about that, because every time I see like a little clip from Paralives, I'm like, man, I really wish The Sims had this thing that Paralives has. So it's something that I'm really excited for. It's something that I want to continue to keep my eye on. I haven't looked at it too much this year. I think the last update was maybe back in September, I want to say. So, it's been a couple of months of silence, but I think he's got to be getting a little bit closer. So I'm really excited to see more of it.
Yeah, I think next year is going to be the year to watch several different developers. Honestly, like Mollie, you put down Alex Messe here for Paralives, and then there's like a couple others to pay attention to next year as Sims competitors. There's Life by You as well, that I think is actually expected next year. I hope I'm not talking out of my ear on that. And then the one called Inzoi as well, that we just sort of recently found out about by a Korean studio. It's got a very much more like realistic look to it. I would say it's the folks who do Sims custom content, alpha Sims custom content instead of Max's Match. It's for the alpha folks, that like hyper realism. So yeah, there's like a few different developers. I forget the name of the developers behind Inzoi, and frankly, off the top of my head, I also forget the name of the developer that's doing Life by You. Conveniently, though, there is an article on the site on PCGamer.com rounding those up to remind you what they are that I put together. So I'll pull that up and remind myself who's doing those things. But if you want it right now, you could search for it on the website. What else do we have? What is Beard Envy? Someone tell me what that is.
That was me. So Beard Envy is currently making a game called Uncle Chop's Rocket Shop, which is a game that I went to see at Gamescom in 2022. If I remember correctly, because my memory is so terrible, it's like 3 British dudes making this game that's kind of like a satirical take on like 1950s Americana. It's very like South, like very like Texas, kind of South America, not South America. You know what I mean? Like, like very Texas kind of vibes, 1950s Americana, like that very like quintessential like, British take on it. That kind of also reminds me of like an episode of like Regular Show or Adventure Time, and how kind of surreal it is. It's very, very cool looking. It's a roguelite spaceship repair sim. There we go. So it's like you're like a spaceship repair person who has to pay rent, otherwise you're going to get murdered, basically, if I remember correctly. And so you have customers that come to you, and like their rocket ship parts will be from different manufacturers, and you can like open up a manual and you can see how to fix it or what needs to be done, or you can try and sort of like hodgepodge your own solution together, which may work better, or it like may work at the time, and then they'll come back a few days later and be like, you fucked up my ship. So it's kind of like the kind of 50-50. What I saw of it, I loved the look of, and I think they've been doing some playtesting at the minute as well. So yeah, it's one of those games. It's like one of those games that I saw and I just think about every now and then and get really excited that it's a thing that exists and is eventually coming out.
I was trying to look up a reminder on names of the Sims competitors, and then I got distracted pulling up other articles on the website because I remembered before we get into more that we have remembered off the top of our heads. We also have a couple things on the site of like the most exciting PC games we know the least about. That was from 2021, so most of those things are out, but not all of them on this list are released.
Oh, wow.
And then we've also got one from last year, 12 upcoming games without names that we're excited about. And I think, is it Blizzard that's doing a survival game that we only have concept art for right now? Which I kind of thought about as we were putting this conversation together. But then I was like, developers to watch, Blizzard. Yeah, sure. Obviously, sure. People are going to pay attention to Blizzard. This isn't games that we're excited about, although it sort of maps that way, right? But yeah, Blizzard, just as a reminder, is working on a survival game. And then like CD Projekt Red is doing a bunch of Witcher games, and a couple other things that are on this list. If you want, Indiana Jones. Who's doing that Indiana Jones game?
Bethesda.
Machine Games, right? Yeah, and we know nothing about that either. And then IO Interactive's James Bond game is on this list. Anyway, that's just a quick interlude of other things.
You talking about Blizzard dabbling in survival games has actually reminded me that Riot is also kind of branching out a little bit, and they're making a fighting game right now. They're making Project L, which is like a 2D fighting game that we have not really seen a whole lot of yet. I think some people have been able to play it, but I think apart from that, there has just not been like a whole lot that we've seen at the minute. But I'm very excited to see what that game will end up being like. You know, Riot has not made anything like this before, as far as I'm aware. It's a very like left field thing for them to be developing, and I'm looking forward to it because, you know, Riot makes a lot of money. Riot pays a lot of money at its tournaments, and the FGC is notoriously underfunded and very community driven. So I'm looking forward to seeing what a developer with a lot of money like Riot can do for fighting games and for competitive fighting games as well. So that'll be really cool.
Yeah, Molly, do you play any other Riot games to a degree where you could say, like, this is what I think Riot does well that I'm excited to see them do in a fighting game? Okay, I didn't think so.
I played the tiniest bit of TFT back when that first came out, and I played like the smallest amount of League back in, I want to say 2017. I am not a Riot girly, really. I'm not like a Valorant girly. Valorant's Riot, isn't it? Yeah, it is. I had to think about that for a second. Like, I don't play Valorant. I don't play League. I do have a League of Legends chair, but that's KDA. It's different. So my experience with Riot is like not super involved. But from what I've been seeing of Project L, like the little bits I've seen, it looks pretty good. So I am excited to see what they do. They've got good marketing. That's something I do know. They got good marketing because I don't play their games, and they made me buy a chair. So
let's see. Another developer that I feel like a lot of times doesn't miss is Rare, and I've already mentioned Sea of Thieves once as a thing that I really enjoy from them. But Rare has been around a long time, has a lot of great names to its name. And one of the things that we know they're working on right now is Everwild, that we saw just one teaser reveal trailer for like a couple of years ago. I don't remember exactly when this happened, but I rewatched it and I was like, oh yeah, I still feel good about that. It's like I don't think we hardly even know what kind of game it is. We've just seen like folks like petting large fantastical animals, and I don't remember if it involves riding them or what, but like it's giving the vibes of open world potentially. Yeah, I think I linked the teaser trailer and then now I've forgotten what's in it after I watched it. But yeah, that's another one that's been like a little under wraps since that first trailer, and like I'm very curious about.
Yeah, me too. I'm a big Rare fan, so
Mm-hmm.
like one of the first games I ever completed was Cameo Elements of Power on the Xbox 360, which is like still my favorite Rare game. It has not aged well, but it's still like my favorite Rare game. And I know like the Rare now is not, it's not the Rare that it was back then, but I do also really love Sea of Thieves. I
Yeah.
really like Sea of Thieves. I think it's a really fun game. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else they can pull out of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect it will be multiplayer, right? That was the vibe I got off that teaser. It did seem like all of those characters in it were different people, and it's maybe
I
not a
would
full like Sea of
certainly
Thieves
hope so.
experience, but
Yeah.
it did seem like it did have a co-op vibe.
A co-op vibe to it. Now I'm pulling it up on my other screen to look at really quickly. Oh, yeah. So it does have that vibe because you've got like characters all in these hoods and they're wearing different colors, which like that doesn't mean anything. But when you think about like the visual design of trailers and like co-op in games, and you've got like three very similar looking like silhouetted characters in yellow, blue, and red, all wearing a similar outfit, you're like, okay, well those are players, right? Right? This is a co-op type dealio, which again, not a thing we know for certain, but it does feel that way. Like that's probably true, unless it's in here somewhere. Brand new world in development at Rare. That's what the trailer says. It does not confirm anything else. I could go digging further. But yeah, Rare's one to watch because I don't think Rare does only one thing at a time necessarily. I mean, clearly they've got ongoing work on Sea of Thieves, and then they have Everwild in development. Like, is Rare doing anything else that we know about at this moment? Or is there potentially like some other thing being incubated? That might be the case as well. Trying to remember exactly how big Rare is and how many projects it might have in its hands at any given time.
I don't think they're working on anything else right now. Not that I'm
Okay.
aware of, anyway.
Mm.
I think it might just be these two things.
Okay. Developers to watch, though. And this one I added as we were also finding out from the Game Awards. I was very curious about what Moon Studios would be doing next, the folks of Ori and the Blind Forest. This might be the thing that, like, at this moment I'm feeling the most, like, excited about and, like, wanting to watch and pay attention to them because Moon Studios, known for doing Ori and its sequel, very good, like, puzzle platformers, like action platforming type deal. Those games are fantastic. And they are now making an ARPG, like specifically not just action RPG of the third person variety, but ARPG of the top down Diablo Path of Exile variety. And what they have said is that like they now feel good about like the position of their studio. They have this experience from Ori. They've like always wanted to do this and they want to revolutionize the genre of ARPGs. And I was like, that is bold. It is very bold, but you have my attention. Because I don't know if I think like Ori revolutionized platformers necessarily. Like those are very good games. But they're like the perfect like distilled puzzle platformer in my mind, not like changing platformers as a whole. Have either of you gotten excited feelings about like new blood in ARPGs?
I will say this year is the first time I ever played an ARPG. Diablo
Okay,
4
for Diablo.
was my first ever ARPG. And I have also not played Ori and the Blind Forest or what's the second one? Ori and
Will o' the Wisps.
Yes. I have not played either of those games, which is a travesty, quite frankly, because they look absolutely gorgeous and I can't believe I still haven't played them. But I will say, like, although I didn't really jive too much with Diablo 4 in the end, I did jive with ARPG kind of aspect of it. I thought that was super fun. So if you could take something that's as pretty as Ori and then put like a really cool like ARPG on top of it, I'm there for it 100%.
I do think action RPGs are a genre that could do with some shaking up.
Yeah.
Because I played a chunk of Diablo 4, but after like a month, I felt very done with it, and like that formula is just a little too familiar now.
Mm-hmm.
And especially how it sort of evolved into sort of this MMO adjacent thing. I played a lot of Lost Ark, which is not, it's sort of half action RPG, half MMO, and I do want that genre to stop being about wandering through a field, killing a million wolves to slowly level up your abilities that are all on cooldowns.
Yeah, and they've definitely messaged that that's something they want to steer away from as well, is like just going for that like new percentage piece of gear is like doesn't always feel great. Another thing I'm pulling up on the site that you can find is the 7 most exciting PC games revealed at the Game Awards, which is something that we got like a few different PC gamer writers to contribute to, things that we were excited about, because I picked this game of theirs. What is it called?
No Rest for the Wicked?
No Rest for the Wicked, yes, is what the name of the game actually is. I picked that one, and what I said about it is that I'm excited to see their like visual design and their world design in action RPGs for sure, because yeah, like Diablo Path of Exile, it's all very just like metal grimdark, right? Like that's sort of the vibe of like quite a few different ARPGs. And Moon Studios does like these beautiful, like kind of like hauntingly cozy worlds, and they also can just like make me cry without there being any dialogue in the game. Like Ori, famous for that, for making everybody cry. So yeah, getting that personality into this genre, I think is really exciting for sure. There's a couple other things on this list that I didn't include in our notes that are probably worth like a rapid fire. Like you can go and read more thoughts from our different writers on these games. But like the other obvious elephant in the room, I guess I should say, is Light No Fire by Hello Games. We should be paying attention to Hello Games this year and what comes out of Sean Murray's mouth, right?
Respectfully, yes.
Respectfully, yes. I think Sean Murray is very conscious of what's coming out of Sean Murray's mouth at this point, based on his Twitter posture after that announcement. He's sort of been memeing on himself a little bit after the announcement of an entire planet. I think he knows what he's doing this time and knows how to keep it in check. But that is a developer to pay attention to next year. No Rest for the Wicked. Big Walk is on here too. Kamuri, this is another, the studio's name is Unseen. And this is the studio that Ikumi Nakamura went and founded after leaving Tango Gameworks, right? We were kind of waiting to find out, like, she kind of like, Ghostwire Tokyo was like not out yet. It had been announced at, an awards show during a particular year. Reception was very good, and not long after that she took off and left Tango, and we didn't know what she was going to do. Then she founded a studio. We didn't know what they were going to make. Now they've done this trailer that admittedly is very like cutscene. It's very pre-produced animation. This is not a gameplay trailer, but oh my gosh, it had some personality. It had some like urban parkour fantasy stuff going on, and the music in it was killer. So I'm excited to pay attention to Unseen and see what on earth they do this year. I don't know if either of you are feeling excited about that.
I did like that trailer. The enemies that you see like very briefly at the end, like a huge crowd of them, have that yokai look of like Japanese mythology but modernized. It's weird, like in Japan they have all of those like sort of medieval monsters and stuff, but then also modern ones, like in Ghostwire Tokyo there was the scissor woman who was terrifying, and that's like sort of a modern day urban myth, but is also a yokai. It's like the same category as, you know, foxes that turn into people and all of their like medieval folklore, and that's what the vibe I got from the monsters in Kamuri. Like you see there's a demon, but he's just got sneakers on.
Yeah. And that, I think this also like very much qualifies not just as a game that we're excited about, but again, like a developer, because it's a new studio from her. And I went and I checked out their YouTube to feel like, to make sure that this was the first time this game had been announced. And it is. They hadn't sneakily revealed it before the Game Awards. This was a true world premiere. But for the like last several months prior, like she's been hosting Q&As on their YouTube and just going like full creative director, like personality mode, like a full auteur. I'm like, you know what? Go get it, Ikumi Nakamura. Nobody even knows what you're working on, and you're here with your laptop in like a cute video being like, what are my inspirations? Like, you know what? Heck yes.
I love that.
I love that too. So that's, I think I want to pay attention to that game, but also that developer and like what kind of communication strategy they're going to continue having in this next year, even if we don't know exactly when that game is going to happen. Yeah. Any other like last minute shout outs that you guys thought about like as we were in this conversation, stuff that I didn't remember?
I don't think so. There's a lot of good games coming out
next
year. There's a lot of developers that are whittling away at their stuff, and I think 2024 is going to kind of continue what we've seen in the latter half of this year, of some really cool games and some really big hitters and some really good indie games kind of coming out the woodwork as well.
Yeah,
I did actually think of one, a studio to watch, which is Night School, who made the Oxenfree games and After Party, and they just did Oxenfree 2 this year with Netflix, and I think they are owned by Netflix now, so that's a whole lot of extra money they have behind them for whatever they do next. All of their games are very like narratively inventive and dialogue heavy and well written, so I'd be down for whatever they want to do next.
Yeah, that's a good shout too. Awesome. Well, thanks, guys, for coming and helping me refresh everybody's memory on different developers, things that they've got going on, games that we know things about, games that we know nothing about, but really would like to. As we get here towards the end of the year, it's time to start thinking about what's happening next year and, have our cautious optimism hats on. Have the realistic tempered excitement, even if Sean Murray doesn't. Cool. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.